isn't cleared for Sunday night big game against the Eagles. Here's Coach Mike McCarthy on prepping for a game with a rookie quarterback.
Is it harder?
Yeah.
I mean, was I not supposed to laugh at that? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell with your mask on, so I didn't know if you were serious. Yeah, it's a bit harder to prepare with a first year quarterback, than Andy. Yes.
What a year that guy is having. Here's the thing. Dominique, the Cowboys are going into a game against the Eagles. That means if they win, they're in first place. But we've seen how badly they've played and how bad they have looked, and now they're likely going to be playing it with their third-string quarterback. Do they have any chance of turning this thing into a season that means something?
Well, they don't have any chance this weekend, which I think means that they probably don't have any chance of turning this season into something that means something. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, considering the fact that they can't stop anybody on defense, and their offense is now down to a third-string quarterback whose name none of us knew before before last weekend. So to me, it feels like, and it feels like the team doesn't believe in the coach, and the coach is laughing, which I'm not sure what else he's supposed to do in that situation. It doesn't feel very promising. The owner is getting all testy on the radio. Like, it feels like it's as big of a mess in Dallas that they've had down there in a long time.
Correct, which means, D. Wood, in your view, wherever this thing winds up taking them, unless they have some miraculous turnaround, is it time to blow the whole thing up in Dallas?
Yes, it is, including the coach. Listen, Jerry Jones, quite honestly, made a mistake. I mean, you're talking about a coach, Mike McCarthy, who hired basically one of his buddies and Mike Nolan to be the defensive coordinator. The last time Mike Nolan led one of the top units in the National Football League. It's been forever. And when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, particularly, their identity over the years, it's been around their offensive line. Well, Green, and guess what? You look at their offensive line, they're decimated. Okay, you got, Tyron Smith out for the year, Leo Collins out for the year. The center have retired. They got all sorts of injuries and guys missing that were the staple to the Dallas Cowboys identity. And without that, I just don't think that this team will be able to go anywhere. So I think it's time for the Dallas Cowboys. It's time to hit the reset button.
Yeah, it may be. We'll see. And we'll see what role in it Dak winds up playing based upon salary cap considerations and everything else. I want to leave it there because I want to save plenty of time for this next discussion, which I think is the most important one in sports right now. Everyone talking after the World Series clincher on Tuesday night about, after giving up his second hit of the game, Blake Snell getting pulled by Rays manager Kevin Cash. The Dodgers scored twice in that inning. They took the lead. They never looked back. They won the championship. The big number that supported that decision by the manager was that Snell was at the 73-pitch mark. And we ran through all these numbers for you yesterday on the radio, Hembo putting them together. Once he gets to that point in his season, when he throws that many pitches, opponents basically hit like they're Lou Gehrig against him in every considerable moment. And what all of that adds up to is a moment in which analytics took center stage during the biggest game of the baseball season. And the analytics revolution, if you will, has been something that has caused so much interesting conversation and consternation. I wanted to bring it to this group. Dominique Foxworth, let me start with you. A lot of people have criticized, candidly, almost everyone criticized the manager for basing a decision there on analytics versus what his eyes were seeing in the moment. What did you think?
I think almost everyone is wrong. Like, to me, it just feels like confirmation bias from meathead anti-intellectuals. Like, the decision was made based on the stats that were presented to him, and that's the decision that they've been making all season. Like, you don't get a bottom five payroll to the World Series without relying on some analytics. Like, feel isn't going to get you there. And I understand why people think that you should change your habits or change your decisions in those situations, but analytics is a lot based on probability. So you're at this crossroads where you have a decision to make. And one side, there's a tightrope you can use to cross it. And the other side, there's a rickety bridge. Okay, the rickety bridge might break, but it's slightly safer than the tightrope. That's what analytics is about, not about having some feeling and everyone jumping on this as a reason to say that analytics are bad. It's just confirmation bias, because you could also look at this and say this team that should not be in the World Series is in the World Series because they relied on getting every edge they can, because they rely on numbers, not on some sort of feel.
So you're very much alone amongst most of the people I've talked to on that perspective. Louis Riddick, what do you think? Analytics. This is not just a baseball conversation. Analytics versus the eye test. Where do you stand, Louis?
Look, I think the sweet spot is when you have the marriage between the objective and the subjective and you allow them to work together. Meaning this, I am not someone who's going to bang on analytics because I believe that it plays an important role in all sports. And in the sport that I cover in particular, in football, it's playing a bigger and bigger role, especially when you're talking about two-point conversion probabilities, fourth down conversion probabilities, and I understand it, and you see it playing itself out. It's just that the issue here is this, though. Once you start getting into certain situations, the subjective decision-making process has to be also considered. For instance, I mean, if you're one of those football teams who's deep in your own territory, you know that fourth down conversion probabilities have continued to trend up over the past couple of years, and you're facing a 4th and 1 on your own 25, own 30-yard line, and you're in a tight ball game, and your offense isn't doing very much. It's probably not smart to go for it on 4th down at that time, especially if you're playing good defense. Punt the ball away, play the field position battle, and that's like one of those kind of situations, although it's just a small situation, of where your subjective feel for how the game is going to trump what the analytics would tell you to do necessarily in that kind of situation. But look, there's no question, though, that relying on some historical data to help you make decisions is something that's here to stay. It's something that I believe in. And maybe in this case, he needed to pay attention to what was going on in the on the baseball diamond with his pitcher and said, hey, look, maybe he starts to get hit at this point in time in the past, but right now he's feeling it and our team is feeling it. Maybe I should leave him in there a little bit longer.
Yeah, sometimes I like to say it can be a little more of an art than a science sometimes. D. Wood, 30 seconds. Your thoughts. Analytics. What did you think the other night?
No, listen, I think analytics, definitely has its role, particularly in the sport of baseball. But again, when you're talking about not just baseball, but sports in general, a lot of times the ebb and flows of the game, they change. And to consistently to rely just on the numbers in this particular situation, I think it did a huge injustice to the Tampa Bay Rays in this particular situation.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a whole other conversation to be had, and we can do it another time, about whether it's taking a lot of the fun out of the sport as well. We'll do that as we continue. Meanwhile, as we move forward here, Cam has been taking some heat in recent weeks over his play. The latest criticism came from close to home. You'll hear it next. Get up on ESPN. Heather and Paul will be along in just a minute on the very latest from the Big Ten, where they have got trouble. All that and more on the way. But we begin with a huge weekend in the NFL. Kicks off tonight. Falcons and Panthers get the weekend started. And then Sunday, so much at stake as the Cowboys visit the Eagles. As hard as it is to believe, the winner will be in first place in the NFC East. So it matters a lot. So does this. NFC West leading Seahawks 5-1, hosting the 4-3 49ers, who are a game back of all the wildcard teams in the NFC. The NFC West, the most competitive division in the sport. Then the 2-4 Pats at the first place Bills. Bill Belichick hasn't started a season 2-5 since his first year with the Patriots, the year before Tom Brady became his quarterback. And then showdown, Steelers, Ravens, highest combined win percentage in the series history between these two teams. Here's Big Ben on this big rivalry.
It's a physical one. It can be nasty at times, but I've always felt as many times as my nose has been broke, we've had injuries. It's been a close game. It's always been football in its truest form, in the sense that it's never dirty. It's never been nasty. It's just been hard-nosed football. And so this is one you always want your bye week to be after.
It's interesting that he puts it that way because their bye week was shifted. The Ravens have a bye leading into this game. The Steelers were supposed to, but that got moved around because of the coronavirus changes. And look who's here. The squad is ready to go. Dominique is here. Damien Woody. Adam Schefter is up early this morning, and we will get Louis Riddick in just a minute. But Dominique, let's start with that. The fact that the Ravens have a bye and the Steelers don't. Is that a bigger advantage for Baltimore in your view, physically or in terms of preparation?
Yeah, I think getting that rest is certainly nice and it makes you feel good and you're a little bit healthier going into the game. But I think it's more important for preparation wise. I rewatched that game last night and I saw so many coaching changes on both offense and defense on both sides throughout the course of the game. It was one of the more cerebral games that I've watched from last season. So I think the Ravens having the opportunity to put a little bit more effort into their preparation, I think is more benefit to the Ravens for their preparation than it is for them physically how they feel going on the field.
Yeah, the Steelers, the last unbeaten team in the NFL. The Ravens sort of flying under the radar since they got handled by Kansas City, but this would certainly put them right back in everybody's conversation. D. Wood, as you look ahead to this one, what's a matchup you're looking for?
Greeny, I know you and Shefty and Neek want to talk about the skill people, but this is about the big boys, the big dogs in the trenches. Every time you talk about the Pittsburgh, the Steelers, Ravens rivalry, it all